This is the Umbrella Academy on TV Podcast Industries, and we're discussing Umbrella Academy Season 4, Episode 1, The Unbearable Tragedy of Getting What You Want.
Thank you for being here. We have a big night planned because tonight we will be discussing the umbrella effect and how I believe we can return to a restored and correct timeline.
Welcome back, Academy alumni, fellow Trapper Keepers, or just keepers. This is TV Podcast Industries, and we're discussing the Umbrella Academy Season 4, Episode 1, The Unbearable Tragedy of Getting What You Want, a.k.a. Oh, we're into the final season, people.
Mm-hmm.
I am one of your hosts, Chris.
I am your other host, Derek. But the good part about this is that it's not an unbearable tragedy. It's a tragedy that's the final season, but it's not an unbearable tragedy because we still get to watch it, right?
Yes, exactly. It's a good thing, no matter what way you look at it.
Exactly.
Because they got what they want.
Yeah.
Or did they?
We'll find out by the end of the season. But as normal, fellow alumni, we haven't watched ahead, so we don't know what's going to happen at the end of the season. We are just watching these episodes and podcasting about them. We are very late, though, aren't we, Chris?
We are. Because there was a little small humdinger of an event that got in the way.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what that could be. I hear, hark, do I hear bells?
There were wedding bells, or were there?
There you go.
I think there were. Yes, myself and John, finally, after 19 years together, tied the knot, got married, did all the things. Pretty awesome. But you might notice that we don't have John with us today.
Because you are actually secretly a Black Widow and you got the nuptials, killed him off already, and we're moving forward. That's it. That's what happened, right?
Chris, this is recorded. Don't be saying that. No, unfortunately, John's back gave out. That sounds much better than it is. No fun thing happened that kicked out his back. But yeah, he's unable to record with us for the Umbrella Academy. We are going to slowly record these episodes over the next couple of weeks. So hopefully he'll be back by the end of the season. He has been watching, lying flat on his back, on the couch, watching the episodes and enjoying them. But hey, at least we had a great celebration of our wedding beforehand, huh?
Exactly. And to be fair, this was podcaster on podcaster violence. Our podcat, the podcat himself, Charlie, was the one who did it. He's the evil. He is the dark dominion that has settled on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, John picked him up and put him down and never got off the floor.
That's right.
For the last few weeks.
Yep. That's right. Poor thing.
Yeah. Podcaster on podcaster violence.
But we will wish him well, and hopefully he'll be back with us very soon. Hopefully he'll be back in time for our next podcast on The Lord of the Rings in a couple of weeks' time, because I know, Chris, you haven't watched The Rings of Power Season 1 yet, so we can't even sub you in for the second season.
No, but sure, look, I'm sure there's Samwise, Magneto is one of them, right?
No.
And then the X-rated Ring of Power, the One Ring. Oh, that's it. Yeah. No, yeah, I'd be fine. It'd be fine. I can wing it. It's good.
I think we might hold off if John can't do it. We might hold off until he's better. Anyway, we are here to talk about, of course, the final season of the Umbrella Academy, Season 4. Looking forward to chatting about this, Chris.
So am I. It's like I said, it is a sad thing. This is the end, but I get the feeling it's going to be at least a raucous, joyous occasion and journey as we go through the six final episodes of this season. Yeah, there's a lot to discuss. So I think we really kind of got to kick in. As you said, this will be a very spoiler-filled discussion. So if you haven't watched it or listened to it, well, look, there's 3 seasons you can go back to. Listen to all those, and then come over here. But do make sure you've watched this episode and jump in. Don't forget, you can, if you have feedback on episodes 2 to 6, head on over to TV Podcast Industries, where you can make sure you subscribe and then go to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com with an email and send us all your thoughts, opinions, discussions, theories, everything under the sun, and we will discuss it in our upcoming episodes. Additionally, you can head on over to facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries, where we have a spoiler post for each and every episode, where you can have spoiler-filled discussions with your fellow Academy alumni over there and really get into the nitty-gritty of what you think is happening.
Mhm.
With all that said and done, though, Derek, do you want to tell us who gave us what, where, when, and how with the episode details for Season 4, Episode 1, The Unbearable Tragedy of Getting What You Want?
Absolutely. Yeah, the show was created for TV by Steve Blackman from the comic book series by Jared Way and Gabriel Ba. The series was developed for Netflix by Jeremy Slater, and this episode was directed by another Jeremy, by Jeremy Webb, who's directed loads of episodes of The Umbrella Academy. This episode was written by showrunner Steve Blackman and Jesse McGowan, who again has written loads of episodes of Umbrella Academy. So for the final season, it's not just the cast back, loads of the creators behind the scenes back as well.
Yes, it's a who's who of Academy alumni. Yeah, so all the best ones are back. But Derek, do you want to tell us what those best ones gave us with your summary of this episode?
Yes, I will. 6 years after defeating the last apocalypse, the now depowered Hargreave family have separated from each other. Luther is working as a lunchtime stripper and is having trouble reuniting the rest of his siblings for a family get-together. While Five is working undercover for the CIA, investigating a cult called the Keepers, its leaders Jean and Jean Thibodeau are gathering evidence of other timelines that they believe were wiped out. Along with the rest of their group, they await the Cleanse, which they believe will resolve all these anomalies. Also on the trail of the Keepers is Lila. With her suburban life with Diego not panning out like she planned, she covers her investigation in the cult, but Diego believes she's cheating on him. On his way to the family gathering, Victor is kidnapped by a stranger who enlists the former Umbrella Academy to find his daughter Jennifer, who he believes was kidnapped by the Keepers. Meanwhile, as Ben is released from prison after 4 years, Luther tries to reunite him with the Hargreaves, but still angry at the loss of his real family, Ben surreptitiously feeds the siblings a shot of the alien syrup Marigold, hoping to restore his and their powers. There you go, yeah. 6-year time jump. So they're up in 2025. Madly.
Yeah,
I
know.
I was looking at the dates coming up on screen. I was going, wow, 2019 is when the last episode finished. And here we are in 2025. So I think they were planning to release this towards Christmas time this year.
Yeah, so that's what I kind of get. Based on the weather, I was like, wait, are they in like the like Alaska? Is this like the mid like northwest? Are we hitting Canada here? And then I was like, oh no, based on
it feels cold and autumny or wintry, doesn't it, rather than a summertime show.
So I was trying to do the math and stuff. It was like, okay, hold on. The show came out in 2018, 2019. Yeah, originally it was those dates, and they've saved the universe 3 times. But on a number of those occasions, it's the same day.
Yes, exactly.
So basically, that's how I was like, wait, hold on. How is it only... Wait, hold on. And that's how my math... I was like, okay, now they did the time jump. Because yes, there's also a very valid, good reason for a time jump. 5 is no longer a kid.
No, he's not. They have to do something.
Yeah, exactly. It was just like, how do you get around the guy who is definitely in his 20s now?
Yeah.
And probably needs to shave a lot.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't think Aidan Gallagher would look the same in his short pants this season.
Hey, everyone loves short shorts.
I do love his introduction though in the episode. I thought it was really funny that they put him with the fake mustache to make him look really much older than he normally looks, and then they take it off to make him look younger again. I think that's a very smart way to introduce your character who's aged that many years, 6 years in the last couple of years. So, yes, a very, very good idea. Chris, do you want to start us off? What's your big moment from this episode?
Well, look, we've got a fair number of them. Let's talk about the Hargreaves. Let's talk about they're definitely depowered.
Yes, they
hope to.
Yes.
Because that was the interesting piece. I was like, we have to remember, we were trying to figure out what would happen at the end of last season. They land in the park.
Yeah.
You get that beautiful skyline shot of the Hargreaves Tower. Especially Mr. and Mrs. Hargreaves are there. And then you got the kids, and they all notice you basically have 5 trying to do a teleport. Oh, that's not working. And then they all go their way. And you get slowly reintroduced to each of the characters.
Yeah.
And I did enjoy, to a degree, where they've set them up.
Yeah.
And how they've set them up.
Yeah.
One of the first that we're introduced to is Diego and Lila. They left together, supposing that they would be the happy couple after the end of last season. And you kind of get this, that they're married, they're together, happy is questionable, but they're definitely out living life.
Yeah.
Lila is a mom.
Suburban mom,
and
yeah.
being a soccer mom, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
I feel bad saying that, but you do understand the kind of overall.
Yeah.
And then you have Diego being the Dark Knight of delivery man, the Batman of the UPS world.
Yeah, yeah. And it's RPS in this universe, isn't it? So very similar, but I love that they take in the Amazon delivery drivers kind of problems that we've all heard about now, where they're not allowed to take breaks and they have to pee in bottles so they don't stop, and he's getting given out to by his boss. Like, this is the guy that, you know, used to be, as you say, the Dark Knight. He used to be Batman in this universe, you know, who's this cool guy who had no responsibilities. Lila the same, and now they're living these suburban lives. He's pretty much on a minimum wage job. Love the joke, of course, about, you know, he had great abilities when he had his powers from the Marigold in the past seasons. Here he's throwing all these packages and they're going through like people's front windows and they're cracking on the lawn, you know. Kind of love that. But yeah, poor, slightly heavier Diego.
Yeah. He put on a bit of a pouch.
He did. He put on his suburban gut.
Us.
It happens to all of us once you get into your late 30s and into your 40s, right?
Exactly. As soon as you're married.
All right. All right. I have a week in and I've already started putting on weight. So yeah.
And you're allowed to now. That's why.
Exactly. Divorce is difficult in Ireland. Yeah. But we're also introduced to the rest of the family and the other depowered Hargreaves. I think my favourite, without a doubt, is Luther, because how far to go from the man who went to the moon, the leader of the team, and now he's a stripper at lunchtime in a male strip joint. Poor dude.
But he got his body back.
He certainly did. He certainly did.
He is no longer the monkey man.
Yeah. You kind of feel that's why he took the job, don't you? You kind of feel that he's looking at himself going, well, I look really hot and sexy now that I don't have my monkey body. So I am going to go out and show the whole world my body. But he heads off, at a lunchtime strip show. Not very good dancing either.
No, but you do kind of feel that probably what he lacks in raw talent, he probably makes up for in raw talent, if you get my meaning.
I get you. I have to say also the choice of song, the Bad Touch by the Bloodhound Gang is hilarious. The song itself is just a hilarious song for a stripper to be dancing to. One of my friend's favorite songs of all time. I think he's gone to see them live 3 times for that song and that song only. But anyway, that's completely beside the point. Just such a weird song to choose for your stripper dance.
Yeah. But then we do get, for example, so Luther is trying to bring everyone together. And we do get Victor.
Yes, we do.
Victor is now in the North, the Great White North in Canada, and is enjoying a life as a bar owner. Initially, I did think he was kind of just like a server or something, but we hear him say, no, this is his bar.
Yeah.
When he talks to Luther, like, he can't live. But we do also hear one interesting kind of tidbit, which is he never really turns up. So he's kind of separated himself out.
Yes.
From the family. And Victor being Victor, very much it's the character we were introduced to properly last season. Yeah. With definitely his own very kind of particular style of communication.
Yeah.
Towards the family.
But also, Victor is still terrible at relationships.
Oh yeah.
For the first season we saw them in their first relationship, and now the introduction to Victor in his bar is a woman coming in and throwing the keys at him going, you know what you did, and one of the barflies commenting, well, I guess Victor's gone through every woman in town now, you know. So still terrible in relationships, no matter how far away he moves from his family, how much of a life he sets up for himself, still absolutely terrible in relationships. So that's a fundamental fact of Victor, right?
Exactly. And well, hey, look, it's an interesting thing. 6 years, it's obviously a big enough town
to
get through that many women.
Exactly. But he kind of says it's not like that, you know, so maybe it's one every 4 or 5 months, and the barflies are just having a joke at their bartender. But we also have a very interesting change up. We've got Alison with her daughter only,
Yeah.
and she was the one that had made the deal with Reginald Hargreaves to get back to her life with Ray and with her daughter in the same decade. Ray, her husband that she'd met back in the 60s, putting the two of them in the decade. I thought this was a real weird choice that Ray's gone. Ray had walked out on her during the last couple of years, because it seemed like the resolution at the end of season 3 was she at least would have a happy life with everything that she wanted, her daughter, her husband, and not the power that she didn't want anymore. And here she is living without Ray and with her daughter, who's a bit more grown up now, with her guiding godfather, Klaus, who is now terrified of everything.
Yes. Alison I find interesting because she, I don't know, it's an interesting play because, as you said, the whole resolution of her siding with Reginald, and for the last 3 seasons has been, she just wants her life back. She wants her kid. She doesn't want the rumor being who she was and what defined her and her family and her kid.
Yeah.
So, as you said, it will be interesting more to see if we learn more about her in those 6 years. Like, is she just a terrible person? Like, I know that sounds weird. We just know, like, for example, she was just like, last season, she became the villain.
She was the antagonist, absolutely.
Yeah. And
along with Reggie, because she sided with him,
Yeah. Like, no matter what way, like, she kind of went around it, it was, if you weren't with her, you were against her. And, like, it was all just about Claire.
Yeah.
Claire. I want to get back to my daughter. Now, mother's instinct, mother knows best, all that type of thing. It could be interesting to see, but I am curious. And then you had, as you say, you have Klaus, who is now, who we found out is immortal. And
yes, last season,
last season, he's immortal.
That was his power,
yeah. Like, he could talk to dead people because he is consistently dead and not dead at the same time. I find that it's the most Umbrella Academy thing of these characters, where if he was immortal, he is now fearful of death because he has actually died that many times.
Exactly.
And we just weren't aware of it. Like, every time he was missing death, or like, just, skin of his teeth on an OD. No, he actually died. He just came back.
Yeah, exactly. And here, as you say, now that he knows if he dies for good, he's terrified of everything. You know, the bubble wrapping of the stairs is quite funny. And the way he's dealing with Claire as well, bringing her to school and telling her all the ways that she could die, the secondhand smoke, the walking across the sidewalk or across the road when there's cars coming, you know, it's hilarious and so different to the Klaus that we know from the last 3 seasons.
And I legitimately, when you're first introduced to Klaus, I was like, oh, he's a good guy now. He's he's a crossing guard. He's helping at a school or something. That's literally, and then I was like, oh no. Oh no. Oh no. But it was fun.
It was.
I'm interested to see. Then we do get 5. You mentioned this. We have 5 in the Tash.
Yes, we do.
A 5 Tash, if you will. I really enjoyed this introduction because I do think the keepers are going to, we know based on what he's talking about that the keepers will play a big part.
Yeah.
So being introduced to this, I want to say support group. Do you call it a support group?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like AA, but of people who just remember different timeline. I think that's fun.
Absolutely.
And then I enjoy how he's back in the CIA.
Yeah.
Like, you basically get that, like, I don't know, I always lean back into the Usual Suspects. Kind of basically with Kaiser Sose, where the leg starts coming back to normal and suddenly walking normal again and everything. I always enjoy that kind of left of field reveal.
Yeah.
And this is fun. Like, he's back. He is the man, he's always working for the man.
Exactly.
if you will.
Yeah. And especially if the man provides a suit. That seems to be how Five is most known. He's the one that has kept the suit the whole way through these 4 seasons, right? So to see him in street clothes with the moustache at the beginning in his intro was a real surprise. And then to see, of course, that's his undercover gear with a completely different name that he's taken up. He's taken up the name Jerome to deal with all these people. So, but I do think, of course, he was going to be the one that would land on his feet. He's got the job in the CIA. Everybody else is kind of struggling in their lives. Allison's got a commercial deal rather than being a Hollywood superstar like she was in the other timeline, in the other universes. So that's kind of the big difference. He's the one that's established. He's 64 years old, isn't it? Something like that.
He's 64, but theoretically, they were all about 12, 13 when he went missing. Plus 6 years.
Yes. So he's now 20, I guess.
He's 18 to 20 at some point.
Yeah.
So, and he has an assistant. So,
yes.
Not bad.
Exactly.
Not bad at all, sir.
Exactly.
One of the youngest agents of the CIA. And then, look, just because we have to talk about him, the horror that is Ben.
Yeah.
The crypto bro.
Absolutely. So Ben, who's been in prison for 3.5 years of a 4-year sentence for making lots and lots of people lose all of their money on his cryptocurrency scheme. That was a bit of a weird one as well. I felt like at the end of last season they were teasing something for season 4, that they had a plan for season 4, because we had Ben on his own on a train in Tokyo, I think it was. I don't know whether it was definitely said or not what city he was in. But here he's in prison in the same town that the Umbrella Academy was set up. So it feels like they just dropped that post-credit scene from last season and just moved on with their lives. I guess when you have a 6-year time jump, all of that could have happened. And then he made his way back to the Hargreaves for some reason.
Yeah, no, they were talking about him trying to find his family. That was the kind of tease that he was heading back to find his OG family, the OG mother.
His birth parent.
His birth parents.
Yeah. We thought, but there was such a short scene. Yeah, there was no real way of knowing what way they were going. But we thought at the time it was going to lead into something completely different for Ben, because he didn't arrive back with the Hargreaves family. He arrived back in a completely different city. So, probably where he's plucked from to become part of the Sparrow Academy, of course. Yeah.
So we'll wait and see. It'll be interesting to see if that is picked up. Maybe it's a drop thread, but I'm assuming, hopefully not, because when you are pulling together 6 episodes for your final, and it's your final season, you have time to weave a tale and pull in those threads from the previous seasons. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll definitely see.
Yeah, but one of the things I do love about this introduction of Ben is that he's still an a-hole. He's still just as bad as he was in the Sparrow Academy. He hates the Hargreaves because effectively they're the ones that killed his family. It's the Sparrow Academy. It's because of them and their third apocalypse that happened that ended off him losing all of his family. But the relationship between him and Luther, where Luther is constantly, hugging him and trying to get him involved with the rest of effectively Luther's family, not Ben's family. I think it's hilarious. I love the kind of back and forth between the two of them. I think it's really funny. There's a great moment where I think Five comes in and sees Ben at the birthday party and goes, "Oh, I didn't think you were going to be here." And Ben goes, "Well, I just got out of prison an hour ago and I'm thinking of robbing a bank to get myself back in there as soon as possible." That's Ben's relationship. And it all spins into, I guess, the end of the episode, right? Of what Ben actually does. He hates these guys. He finds a way that he could possibly get his powers back, and he effectively pours them all a shot and gives them the marigold that could restore all of the family's powers.
Yeah. And I'm so... I suppose it's not a spoiler. From the trailer, we know they get powers.
Of course, yeah. There was no doubt that this season they were going to have their powers back at some point, but I kind of like that it's on Ben being an a-hole, going completely against the will of the group. They all said, we'll go with what the group decides, and the group decided they did not want their powers back, so they did not want to take the marigold, and then he goes and pours a shot for every one of them. So they're all going to be forced to get their powers back, basically.
Yeah. And how and what that looks like, I'm going to be so interested to see.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun. You're right. Look, they looked like they were teasing a redemption of some kind of Ben, the Sparrow, towards the end.
Yeah.
Now, knowing that he's now the Bernie Madoff of this world, or he's the younger version of Bernie Madoff, or Elon Musk, depending on your proclivity.
Yeah, he believes Elon Musk, which is still not the greatest of role models to have. So, yeah.
No, at all. So, it'll be interesting to see if they do try and kind of bring him towards the full kind of circle of that kind of redemptive arc, if you will, and what that looks like. So, and I'm assuming it will be a Luther-based conversation based on Luther just being, as you said, as huggable as possible. But yeah, that's kind of a lot of I suppose I should mention we don't see the Hargreaves, the Mr. and Mr. Reginald. We don't see him. Aside, we saw him at the end of the last season.
That's right.
Standing with his wife.
Yeah.
The dead wife.
Yeah.
So interesting to see where that kind of, it was Hargreaves Enterprise, I think it was basically on the side of where Hargreaves Industries was on the side of the tower. Yeah,
it was actually multiple buildings. They all had Hargreaves on them. So it was like as if he'd come back and taken over this new world. He'd gotten everything that he wanted out of the deal that he made. Even though at the end of the season, Allison did kill the robot version of Hargreaves. But when we come back to this world, here he is with his wife at the end of last season. But you're right, he didn't appear in this episode at all. There's mention of him a few times, and Luther's living in the house of the Umbrella Academy. Again, hilarious that he thinks the house has been done up, but everybody's telling him it's an absolute shithole. So.
Hey, if that shithole's free, I'd take it.
Absolutely.
I could slowly work on it.
Yeah.
How property cost is the thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's our Hargreaves.
Mm-hmm.
That is the depowered, soon to be powered Hargreaves.
Yes.
Derek, what is your point for this episode?
I'm going to talk about the other side. I guess the antagonists for the season. You kind of mentioned a little bit about them earlier on, but the Keepers, this group that are set up. First, we see them through the eyes of the investigation that's going on from 5, where they have the support group talking about people who've noticed that things are different in this world. There's things that have happened that they remember, or things that don't really fit in with this new timeline. So I guess this is playing off what happened at the end of last season, where the tool or the machine that Reggie used in the other world and around Hotel Oblivion to reset the universe hasn't reset it fully. So very hard to keep this stuff together when you're talking about multiverses in Marvel and DC and comic books and movies and stuff. So very hard to keep their version of it together, because they keep calling them different timelines, that they're all different timelines that split apart and then were pulled back together to create this one new timeline in the Umbrella Academy. So, but I thought the support group was really interesting, because you have the guy that stands up and he says, that he suspects that Reginald Hargreaves isn't a human, which is true, right? So, and he says that he's, that Reginald Hargreaves was taking teenagers and turning them into vigilantes effectively, which again is true, but not in this timeline, in this world. And then even when 5 speaks, the things that he says are actual things that happened to his family over the last couple of seasons, which we've seen. So I was kind of going, hang on a second, is 5 a part of this support group? Is he actually talking to other people? Has he found all of these other people? Is he a higher up? What's the reason he's talking to them and telling them all these truthful things that have happened that are supposed to be keeping secret from this restored timeline? I thought that was a really interesting opener for them. And then we meet the other, I guess, the biggest antagonist of all, Jean and Jean Thibodeau, which I absolutely love the casting of these two actors. We're big fans of Nick Offerman from his work on The Last of Us, of course. He was absolutely brilliant in that episode that he did, and won so many awards for it after, of course, his work on Parks and Rec and a comedic role. And here he is working with his actual wife, Megan Mullally, who's from Will and Grace, of course. So it's great to have the two of them here playing weird characters, but they're also very violent characters and really tracking down these details that are different between the timelines, things that have not happened. So their opening scene, which I thought was really interesting, where they're playing card games and then find a dealer who has found a movie that stars Alison Hargreaves in another universe, and in their universe it stars a completely different actress. So I thought that was quite an interesting touch. And then they just kill him and get the money back, basically over a couple of grand. So that's a pretty brutal and pretty violent opener for those two characters. Yeah.
But they also, just as you said, they have this quirky, homey, folksy, weird character. Just, I don't know how to describe that. You're just drawn to them on screen.
I would say they're like a comedy version of something out of a David Lynch movie.
Yes, that's a very good.
They're probably humans that don't exist in the real world, but we think that under the surface of the standard apple pie countryside Americans that there's some weirdness in there too. So that's how they're playing it. But yeah, really like the two of them on screen. They're really, really good. And we hear about their the kind of inner sanctum of the keepers that they lead. They're the two leaders of the group, and they come and talk to this group and tell them about their whole concept, that this is something caused by the Umbrella Effect, this Umbrella Academy that they're right about. We know this. The Umbrella Academy caused 3 apocalypses and then pieced this timeline back together from those universes. So it is absolutely the effect of the Umbrella Academy on the world. So they're onto something. Their investigation is right and correct. So that's quite a cool idea that even though they're the antagonists and possibly the villains, I guess, of the season, that they're actually onto something here. It would be very weird if you realized the world around you wasn't shaped right and things were unusual and things don't all fit together properly, and you had tracked down what's causing that.
Yeah. I'm so interested to see where these characters go. Just, again, calling it the Umbrella Effect, I was like, oh, it's going to be good.
Absolutely. It feels like the post Infinity War moment in the Avengers, where we had 5 years later and people kind of still trying to get to grips with the fact that half of the entire planet disappeared and half of the people that they loved all disappeared in an instant. That's what this feels like, these support groups and these people trying to piece together what actually is it that happened here. So, but it's an interesting idea. Yeah,
no. And it'd be interesting because we do know 5 is working at the CIA to figure out whether they're a threat or not.
Yeah.
And he's saying, no, they are.
Yeah.
So is this going to be a Waco? Or is this going to be more of just some weird sex cult?
Exactly.
Nexium type thing.
Yeah. It's always a sex cult if you go up high enough, as they say, Chris.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
But there is an interesting fact around it as well, a little interesting touch around it. When they're giving out their speech, they say that everything's leading towards the cleanse that's coming. So what's the cleanse? Yeah, it could be a Waco style incident that they're going to cause a cleanse, but I guess we'll learn more about that as the season goes on. It's not just 5 that's investigating them though. It's also Lila, who got really bored of her suburban lifestyle and decided, of course, to go out and do an investigation into a cult. Cause that's what you do when you get bored of taking care of kids during the day and doing the school run, right?
Of course. Hey, I can't tell you how many secret society that I'm trying to infiltrate.
Yep. Just call them all book clubs, or podcasting, Chris. You have a perfect cover for it. Kelly, I'm just going to go podcasting.
I am. That's secretly, this is me just talking and trying to undercover get into the podcasting cult. That is Derek and John.
There you go.
It's been a few years, but I'm nearly there. I've nearly figured out what they want.
But I do really like it. I love the meeting of 5 and Lila, where he realizes that she's doing the same investigation. Also some really interesting fun being had with his mustache there, where it makes him look Greek. And look absolutely terrible. But just the last kind of touch of this is that when the two of them go out and compare notes on their investigation of the keepers, they go out for a coffee together, and it turns out that Diego has been pretty suspicious of book club, and I suppose how insistent his wife is to go to it, how insistent Lila is to go to it. She tries to shorten down her daughter's birthday party because she has to go to book club, so that's, I presume, what threw up a bit of a red flag for Diego. So he goes and finds out that she's out having dinner with somebody else. But he only sees the back of the head of 5, who is, of course, undercover, so he wouldn't recognize him at all, because, a mustache does that. A mustache on a shirt does that to 5, because he normally wears a suit, right? So so you would not recognize him if he puts on a mustache.
No, but no one does. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So it's basically, I'm about to make a joke, and only a very select few people will know this.
Okay.
It's kind of like Mark Spector. You put on a mustache and he's suddenly a different person.
Of course, from Moon Knight. Yes, of course.
Yes, there you go. There's at least one person who's listening to us going, woohoo! I get that reference.
Excellent. That's really it for the Keepers, I guess. They're the big antagonists for the show. I guess we'll find out more about the plan and whatever the cleanse is as the season goes on. And of course, as you say, the other big moment in the episode, potentially all Hargreaves will have powers back in the second episode of the show. Anything else about the episode you want to talk about, Chris? Anything else we haven't covered?
The only very quick one is we did miss one member of the Hargreaves that I did not talk about yet, which is Pogo.
Where's Pogo?
We have not seen any. So we didn't see Pogo in the end of last season.
Mm-hmm.
So I was expecting like him shuffling up as almost like a butler.
Yeah.
To Reginald. So maybe we'll get introduced in the coming things, but they haven't even talked about Pogo.
Yeah.
So we'll wait and see. I'm a bit like, where's my Pogo?
I know. I did feel though, after the first season where Pogo was quite heavily featured, that Netflix reduced the cash as they pretty much always do in second and third seasons, which is why Pogo doesn't appear very often. A talking monkey is difficult to pull off on the budget that they give to some of the shows. So, so he did appear in the other seasons less and less as it went on. So, as he hadn't appeared here, I guess in story has Reggie created Pogo since he didn't create the Umbrella Academy team. Did he create Pogo, or did he bring Pogo along with him the way he did in the previous season, the previous timelines? Right? We don't know yet. Or will we
get a trip to the zoo, and it'll be like a trip to the zoo, and it'll be like this monkey is sponsored by Reginald Hargreaves.
Maybe.
Long live Pogo type thing. You're like, oh my god, there's your Easter egg.
Yeah.
But we'll wait and see. Time will tell. Anything for yourself, Derek? Any notes?
Yes. One of the characters we didn't mention, Cy Grossman. Played by the wonderful David Cross, one of my favourite guys from Arrested Development. Very cool to see him in here in a pretty a bit of a psycho role as he takes out Victor and drags Victor along with him. And we find out towards the end of the episode that he's actually kidnapped Victor because his daughter, he believes, has been kidnapped by the Keepers, Jennifer, and he wants the Umbrella Academy to reform to go and find his daughter. So that's kind of the setup, I guess, for what they'll be doing and how they're going to work together during this season. Because Five takes on the job when he sees that there is the marigold there, right? The syrup that gives them all their powers. When he sees that, he goes, "Okay, this guy must be connected somehow. I'm going to investigate this." So he takes on the job. So the Umbrella Academy are back, even though they didn't exist in this universe.
Yeah.
So that's quite
cool. The Umbrella Academy is potentially powered. There you go.
By next episode, yes, by next episode. But it seemed like Five was just going to take on the mission to find his daughter. So that's I guess the driver on their side for the next episode. So yeah, interesting stuff. And again, great to see David Cross in there as well.
Great stuff. Well, Derek, I'm about to ask you very quickly, what did you think of this episode? Episode 1 of Season 4 of Umbrella Academy, the unbearable tragedy of getting what you want. Did you get what you want?
Did I? It's interesting. I've watched this episode 3 times now because I watched it before the wedding, and then I watched it while we were relaxing afterwards, and then I watched it before taking my notes. And the tragedy of getting what you want is all of the family being depowered. That's basically what they wanted. Yeah. And their lives are very boring and mundane. Their lives were defined by them having powers. That's what made them exciting, made them interesting, made a show for 3 seasons out of them. And here, all of them having very boring, mundane lives. Honestly, it's not great to watch. So I'm glad the end of the episode is that they get their powers back. But underneath that, all of that, the best thing about Umbrella Academy is this cast. I think I probably said before that I would watch this cast read the phone book. And that's what
Yep.
this episode felt like. This first episode felt like they were doing that, and they were great at it. And I enjoyed watching them again because I always enjoy them interacting. My two standouts, without a doubt, though, were Luther and Ben, how they're interacting with each other. Five's great and all, but he's been one of my favourites for the last few seasons, and Klaus has been one of my favourites for the last 2 seasons. But Luther and Ben together really made this episode sing. Really enjoyed the two of them. So the cast pulled this out as making it a great episode out of something that was a little bit boring. I'm really more excited about what's going to come up later on in the season, the setup episode. As we say, the first one is usually not the greatest episode of the season, but this one really pulled out of the fire by an excellent cast, I think, for me.
Agreed.
How about yourself, Chris? What do you think overall of the episode?
I'm very much in your camp.
Yeah.
This was for me the tragedy of getting what I wanted, which is they are starting to pull together the end of this show. Like they're winding it down. And it felt like some of that energy, some of the shine of the new Umbrella Academy has the sheen has come off it a bit slightly. The cast is what pulls this out.
Yeah.
The cast is shining through that kind of piece.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was Five and Klaus. Klaus being that weird nutter who's afraid of everything, and Five just being Five in the CIA.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy that. I love Lila. I love Diego.
Mm-hmm.
I love each of these characters. Seeing them do this mundane, I was kind of like, let's speed it up.
Yeah.
Let's get to this, let's get them on their inevitable journey to the apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
I was expecting the clans, quote unquote, to have happened by the end.
Okay, right.
Because usually we start with, hey, the apocalypse is about to happen or just has happened.
Yeah.
You've got 24 hours. Let's go.
Yeah.
Like you put that's what the show is. It's always a race to race to the bottom, which is kind of true, but it's always a race to an end goal to stop a point
that we know straight away. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
So having a bit more of this unambiguous kind of amorphous, the cleanse. I'm like, okay, let's give me more. Let's tease this out, but let's do it a bit faster.
Yeah.
So I think I did enjoy it. I'm on board. Let's just get to the races.
Yeah.
I think that's where I'm going. And I'm assuming they will. Again, it's the first episode. Like you said, rarely is the first episode of anything as stand out as, oh my God, Jewel. It is more, it takes a bit of why Amazon do the first 3 episodes of a season usually out to pull you fully in. But hey, this is Netflix.
Yeah.
They don't need that. They drop everything.
They put it all there. You watch them all through. They did the Netflix thing that we don't talk about a lot of Netflix shows on the podcast because they're all dropped in a day, all dumped on the network in a day or the channel in a day. But they did the Netflix thing. The big moment at the end of the episode is Ben's giving them all their powers back. It's like, oh my God, I have to watch the next episode. That's exactly how they do it. But it is funny you mentioned Prime Video as well, because that's Invincible is the episode you're talking about, the first episode of Invincible. By the end of it, you're going, wow, I want to watch more of this show. That first episode is stunning of that show. So anyway, that's the first thing that went into my head. Brilliant stuff. Looking forward to getting into the second episode. But before we do have a little bit of feedback on the first episode, Chris.
We do. If you have feedback, don't forget you can send it in to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com or join us over on our Facebook group. Head on over to facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries, where the Academy alumni, a group of beautiful individuals who talk about this and many other shows, come join our family. Yes, we are that cult. As you say, everything ends up in cults. This isn't one of those types of cults.
No, it's not.
This is just a lot of people who like to discuss the nerdy topics.
Exactly.
And have at a friendly way. But, as I said, there's a spoiler post for each and every episode. Head on over there. Tell us your thoughts on episode 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And we will read it out as we record the podcast. But first up, we have some feedback from Dr. Bob Phillips, who had this to say. We're back. Klaus might have slipped to the other end of the seesaw. Luther shrunk by 50% of his size. Diego gained what Luther lost. But the dysfunctional dynamic is all there and popping. The end of the universe might still be nigh, though perhaps not the direct fault of the slot this time. Thanks, Dr. Bob. Yeah. I have to give you a 50% to the side. I don't think Diego took that much weight because if he did, I'm at least 75 to 100% of Luther's size then, and that's definitely not, I'm taking that on. I've lost it, I swear.
You have, yeah. But I think Tom Hopper actually did lose a significant amount of weight, in between scenes. He said that because he was able to lose it, and he was going to be showing off his body quite a lot in this first episode, that he lost a lot of weight in between seasons to play that role, because in the past he's been really muscle bound underneath those clothes as the ape version of Luther. So it is interesting that he did lose quite a lot. But it seems like Diego had a lot of fun putting that weight on for his opening scene for this episode.
Yeah, you got to sit around and just eat it. It's like, oh no, I have to sit around and eat like junk food for a while. Yeah. Darn, what is my life? Oh,
I'm not too sure if David Castaneda did that though. I'm not too sure.
Probably.
But
I'm assuming it's a prosthetic.
It might be.
That prosthetic. Good. I swear that's what I have. But anyway, thank you, Dr. Bob, for that. And yes, you're right. Perhaps the cleanse is not the direct fault of our lot this time, but definitely based on the umbrella effect, let's assume
exactly
there's a link.
I was going to say, yes, it could absolutely be their fault, because it is another unintended consequence of them cleaning up an apocalypse. So it is kind of still their fault, right?
Always.
Good stuff. Thanks, Dr. Bob. As Chris said, please send in your feedback for Umbrella Academy. If you watched all the episodes, just mark it that they're spoilers for the full season, and we'll read them out on the final episode when we get round to that.
Yes. With all that said and done, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Brawly Dollies and Academy alumni, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you stay subscribed to the podcast. And if you enjoy what you hear, why not head on over to tvpodcastindustries.com and subscribe to each and every podcast link that we have there for each of our shows. Yeah. And if you want to tell your friends, have they watched this show? Do they enjoy this show? Have they listened to our podcast? No? Well, tell them about us. Because sharing the podcast is what, Derek?
It is sharing the love. We love sharing the love.
We are. I told you again, not a cult. Not that type of cult.
Exactly. Just share the love. Yeah. That's all it is.
Yes. I love cult.
Brilliant stuff. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll speak to you again next time.
Thank you so much, everyone. We'll be back next time with our discussion about Umbrella Academy Season 4, Episode 2, Gene and Jean.
Mm-hmm.
One with a J, one with a G, by the way.
Exactly.
Just keep that.
Exactly.
Yes. We'll speak to you again soon. Thank you so much for listening. Stay safe. Stay brawlied. Stay dollied. Goodbye.
Bye.